The Autoimmune Connection is a web series dedicated to all things autoimmune, with hosts Christina Findell of A Clean Plate, Emma King of The Bacon Mum, Kate J. of Healing Family Eats, and Rory Linehan of The Paleo PI, interviewing new guests every episode. We're bringing patients, practitioners, friends, and family together to connect the dots between diet, lifestyle, and autoimmune disease. The Autoimmune Connection is a web series dedicated to all things autoimmune, with hosts Christina Findell of A Clean Plate, Emma King of The Bacon Mum, Kate J. of Healing Family Eats, and Rory Linehan of The Paleo PI, interviewing new guests every episode. We're bringing patients, practitioners, friends, and family together to connect the dots between diet, lifestyle, and autoimmune disease.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Autoimmune Connection, the show that joins the dots between diet, lifestyle, and autoimmune disease. I'm your host, Rory Linehan of the Paleo PI, and today we have a truly international panel joining us with a guest from a guest from different continents of the world, which I think is a first for the show. Joining me, we have Joanna Frankham from the Sydney Life. We have Astrid Fox from Heal Me in the Kitchen, and Catharina Delmarcel from the Paleo Feast. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thanks, Rory.
Hi.
It's excellent to have you here today, and maybe from the guests, the viewers might be able to guess the theme of today's show, which is following the AIP internationally. The AIP is growing at a rapid rate. With every day, it seems like there's new websites popping up, new visitors to websites, new forums, new groups talking about the autoimmune protocol. We know that the paleo movement and the autoimmune protocol really started from the United States, with an estimated 50 million Americans having autoimmune disease. But that said, equally, there are a large number of people outside of the US that have an autoimmune disease and that are following the autoimmune protocol. So this show really is for you. And on today's show, we'll be talking about the ins and outs of following the AIP internationally. Without further ado, let's delve into today's show. We only have 30 minutes, and I really want to get into the meat of the show. So my first question to the panel is just asking you to introduce yourselves, your blog, where you live, importantly, and how you came to the AIP. So, Joe, if you want to start us off.
Sure. Hi, my name's Joe. I blog at The Sydney Life. I'm a Kiwi living in Sydney, Australia, and I've been following the autoimmune protocol to help my 20-plus years of HS, or hidradenitis suppurativa, since February of last year, although I started looking into it a little bit before that, and it's been amazing, the results that I've had. So I'm really pleased to be part of this community.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. And Astrid, did you want to tell us about how you came to the AIP and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Astrid. I am the blogger behind Heal Me in the Kitchen from Vancouver, Canada, and I discovered AIP from the Paleo Mom website, and that was after about being on paleo for 8 months, and then an emotional stressor hit my life, and then brought me into a ulcerative colitis flare, which is what I'm trying to heal my body from. And I've only been doing AIP since August of the last year, and it's made really a lot of improvement in my health. And I'm just really happy to be here and have the support of the AIP community.
Well, we are super happy to have you on the show today, Astrid. Thank you for sharing your story. And Catharina, you're next.
Hi. So my name is Catharina. I'm from Belgium, in the heart of Europe. I started AIP November 2013. I was doing paleo like 6 months before, and it was good for me. I've been gluten-free for a while in order to cure my thyroid disease. I have Hashimoto's, and adrenal fatigue. Paleo was good, but then I started AIP because I had a wake-up call in the summer of 2013. There was a tumor that was found in my wrist, and it had to be removed. It turned out to be benign, but it was enough to sort of shake me up, and I decided that I had to do this. I come across the AIP in the Hashimoto Facebook groups that I'm part of, and to be honest, it sounded dreadful, and I really didn't want to do it. But I started reading these stories about how people got better, and I just decided I couldn't play with my health anymore. And so I started on AIP, and I've never looked back. After about 10 months into AIP, I was able to get off all the adrenal support, which I was really depending on before. And then about a year into it, I was able to put my Hashimoto's into remission, so I'm in remission right now. And that's my story.
That's so great. Congratulations on getting into remission.
Thanks.
That's really, really excellent. And one thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned is kind of this notion of a tipping point. So for you, it was finding that tumor in your wrist, and I'm so glad that it was benign. But I think that a lot of us come to the AIP from having a tipping point, whatever that may be. So it's interesting to hear other people's stories in that regard. So thank you again. Question number 2 for the panel. Is there a need for AIP or similar healing diets in your part of the world? Joe?
Definitely would be my response. Like in the US, the rate of autoimmune diseases is growing. And certainly I'm seeing within the Australasian region that the interest in the autoimmune protocol is growing. I don't know about you, Rory, but I'm starting to get far more feedback, both on the blog and via instant messaging, with people that are interested in understanding more. I set up an HS Facebook group in February of last year when I started the autoimmune protocol for other HS sufferers, and that group has over 700 people. But as an offshoot from that, we now have an HS Australia group who also are interested in the autoimmune protocol. So awareness, as awareness grows, I think it becomes, it gains its own momentum, which is wonderful to see, because people are having so much success following the protocol, as challenging as it can be for others to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the viewers know, but I'm also located in Australia. Jo and I are a mere 300 k's away, so we've caught up a few times, and she's an amazing person, just for everybody out there who didn't pick that up already. And one of the things about the autoimmune protocol and paleo in general in Australia is that it is really growing at the moment. When I first started blogging about a year ago, all of my traffic was coming from the United States, but now Australia is up there in second position and not too far off. Mark Sisson's in Australia at the moment. He's written an article about paleo in Australia. The Paleo Leap has also written an article about paleo in Australia, and it seems about every week, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a new article in the newspaper about paleo too in the mainstream press.
Yeah, and I think, credit where it's due. Pete Evans has done a lot to bring paleo front and centre. There's a lot of lovers and a lot of haters, because he's very passionate about what he does. But certainly, he's done a lot for bringing paleo awareness to the general public.
Absolutely, yeah. And for those who don't know who Pete Evans is, he is a judge on one of the most popular restaurant/cooking shows on television in Australia, and he also follows the paleo diet. So strongly encourage you to check out his Facebook page. I think he has over 600,000 fans at last count, so it's quite a few people. Astrid?
Yeah. Well, in Canada, they're like on the Facebook page for AIP Canada, there are about 500 and something plus members. And then on the smaller scale and the locally, in Vancouver, we have a smaller but quite active Facebook group for Vancouver that has about 70 members, quite active. And my answer to whether I think whether the AIP diet or lifestyle should be considered by more people in my region is people really should consider the real and whole food diet lifestyle first. And as we talked about the tipping point, you know, something usually has happened to all of us to shake us up, you know, to kind of scare us to say, wait a second, we need to do something, we move forward. I'm glad people look at me, the way I eat, and sometimes they think, at first they kind of go, wow, what can you eat? And then when I invite them over and sit down for dinner, they're like, wow, you eat so well. So they look forward to. And I also just, I'm just pleased that I'm able to educate my children about what eating real food is like. When it comes to the community, you know, whether you can eat out as a paleo person, yeah, for sure. AIP is a little bit trickier because, you know, with nightshades, you really need to explain what is nightshades, and people kind of go, what, pepper, no? But yeah, I think that people really have to take their health in their own hands. We just have to, you know, why are people constantly so tired? That's just the biggest, easiest thing is like they wake up there, I'm so tired. And, you know, I'm not saying everybody has an autoimmune, but people, if they look at the way they eat and their lifestyle, they can really improve it dramatically. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more, Astrid. And interesting enough, when I was in Canada about September, October last year, I used to live there too. Such an amazing country that you live in. And since living there, I lived there about 2-3 years ago, really, I hadn't heard of paleo, and not many people that I'd encountered had, but it seems like it had grown quite significantly since then. So obviously the word is getting out. Catharina, you're next.
Okay, so yeah, I think there is a big need here as well for people. I was just chatting with Nona and Pita, who are the moderators of the UK Facebook groups for AIP, and they said the same thing. I mean, we see people all the time, and it's really scary because they're young people as well. So I don't know if autoimmune disease is on the rise or if people just weren't aware before, but it's really scary. I wonder if everybody would have their blood tested, how many would come back with antibodies. It's huge. And so these people are not really being helped by the medical system. They're given a pill and they're told that we can't really do anything and you'll have this for the rest of your life. And they're desperate and looking for help. And so we started our Dutch Facebook group for AIP in June. We already have like 450 members, which is really big for this, you know, language area. So, and people are really, you know, they come through paleo, I think, and then they find paleo autoimmune because other paleo bloggers are referring them to us. Yeah, so there is a desperate need, and people, I see a lot of Hashimoto's, Crohn's, colitis, psoriasis, MS. Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
And Catharina, I know that your blog, it's in Dutch, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so do you find that there are a lot of people that might not speak English in Belgium, in the Netherlands, that need help with the autoimmune protocol?
Yes, well, most of the people do speak English, but when you're talking in a medical jargon and you're detailing all these food things and rules, and let's not forget we're dealing with people who have chronic disease, who often have brain fog or, you know, impaired mental conditions. So it's not easy for them. That's why I started actually to write a small guide about AIP in Dutch as well. I have the basics up on my website, but I really want to help people who just can't. The paleo approach is, I think, even for people in English, it's kind of hard to get through. But if it's not your language, it can be really daunting. And I think even lifting it is hard already for people who are fatigued. But yeah, so there is a need for more people in other languages. I've actually asked if if the paleo approach will be translated, because that would be great, but it will be a huge job as well, I think. So there are no plans at the moment.
It's a good point you mentioned about even in English. I'm a native English speaker, and sometimes I'm rereading paragraphs of the paleo approach thinking, why don't I understand? So I can only imagine.
Well, it's very It's a very scientific way, the way Sarah presented it, and I appreciate that, because it's very much of, I went to fine arts in school, so I do not have a science brain, but I really get geeked out about the sciencey of aspects of why I eat the way I do, why nightshades, nuts, and all these things. It just gets me very excited. You know, I'm having little quizzes with my 10-year-old, and he's quizzing me to name, nightshades, and it's quite fun. So that's how we do it in our house.
That is super cool.
I think. But and I think that there are definitely people who have the science mind and who want to know the whys behind everything. Like I'm such a person as well. And then of those people, they need to be able to read English pretty well as well. But I think a lot of people just want to have very practical information. They just want to be told, do this, do that, and to have it laid out in a simple way. So that's what I'm trying to do with my book, which actually I'll translate to English as well. So perhaps it'll help some people in the English language who want the simple version, just a doable sort of guidebook.
Great. Well, when does your book come out? When is it scheduled for release?
I'll let you know.
Good answer. So let's continue. I want to know what it's like following the autoimmune protocol in your community, in your region, in your country. Is it easy to access high-quality foods, meats, nuts, if you've reintroduced them, fruit, vegetables? Where do you source them from? Joe, do you want to start?
Yeah. My life has changed in the last sort of 2 years considerably. I don't even go to the supermarket, so all of my shopping gets done at our local farmers market on a Saturday morning, and I have my my favourites. So I've got the farmers that I go and talk to, and they know me, and it's wonderful. Actually, it's really about connecting with people. But there are a growing number of quality providers of real food in the Sydney region. I made a note of a few, just if we have any sort of New South Wales people who are interested. Grub, Grassroots Urban Butcher in the eastern suburbs is great for pasture-fed, pasture-raised meat. Feather and Bone also is a wholesaler that provides really high-end meat. There is a sustainable fish monger in Annandale, and I've just learnt that Otto's cassava flour is hopefully going to start being distributed in Australia, which is massive, and as soon as it does, I will be sure to let everybody know on the blog. So yeah, it's growing, and it's wonderful, and it's good fun actually, connecting with all of these people. It's one of my favourite parts of the week.
Absolutely, mine too. Such a great community that we have, and I'm really glad you mentioned sources for pasture-raised meats, particularly here in Australia. I think a lot of people out there believe that all of our meat is pasture-raised in Australia, and why quite a lot of it is, especially compared to the States. Not all of it is, so it's always a good idea to go and ask your butcher whether this is grass-fed, or if it's a chicken, whether it's pasture-raised. Just to find out first.
I think you're usually pretty safe with lamb
yes.
in Australia and New Zealand. The big question for me is around beef and chicken. And the other challenge is offal can be difficult to source at times, because often the offal will go to the sausage makers. And so finding quality grass-fed offal can be more challenging. Liver is not so bad, but other forms of offal can be a little bit challenging, in my experience.
No, that's been my experience too, so I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Astrid.
We're pretty lucky. So when it comes to produce, just like Joe, your farmers market, when the season is upon us, which we're just coming into spring and summer, which is nice. And even all the produce store that I go to would have an organic section. When it comes to meat, I'm really excited that also I have my little sources. There is a biodiverse farm in the area. They actually do a delivery, monthly delivery. It's called Big Bear Ranch, and they have the best. They have beef, they have turkey, they have pork, pasture, and they really put a lot of love in there. When it comes to grass-fed, there's a lot of people who sell grass-fed but is grain finished, and so we have to ask. But when it comes to like yesterday we just went to a place it's like a grocery store, and again we are lucky. It's just a 30 minutes drive for me, but they have all their meats are either organic or grass-fed. Like you can choose. They have all the offals, and I just get so excited there. And my husband just take the kids, and I am just in the store reading things, picking up things, and stock up. And I would have to freeze things. When it comes to produce, when we have our rainy seasons, to prepare for that, I do fermenting or I freeze fruits. But vegetables I ferment, and that's a good way of lasting through the cold seasons for us here.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point you bring up about the cold season in Canada. If I remember one thing about Canadian winter, it's cold, so cold. And
yes.
I often wonder how that plays in with the amount of produce that you have available to you. Do you find in winter over there that the range is maybe a little bit less than what you would find in other seasons?
Definitely. It's quite sad sometimes going there, and you just look at the vegetables and they just don't really taste the same, and they're just like the slim picking. That's why I really rely on, when it comes to vegetables, I would ferment, and fruit just to freeze as much as I can when in season. And then just wait till the sun comes, and when lettuce tastes like lettuce again.
Great tips. Thanks, Astrid. Katerina.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky here as well. I can't speak for all of Europe, but Western Europe, we have organic food stores, we have markets all year round. We have organic butchers, we even have organic supermarkets. And most big supermarket chains also have an organic range. So for grass-fed meat we have two web shops in Holland who sell it. But if you just ask your butcher about grass-fed, they just look at you like, what do you mean? I think usually animals are outside for a bit, and then they get grains as well. And I think particularly chickens, it's a bit hard to find chickens that have been fed on grass for a bit longer, but you can find it. Yeah, so we're good all year round actually, because we get food from the Mediterranean area, fresh produce, from Israel as well. There's always fresh food, and we can order online as well. We can order a lot. Like there's a paleo web shop in Holland, and I've heard that people order from Amazon in the UK and from iHerb. They have some specialty products there. And then for things like fresh plantains and plantain chips and sweet potato starch noodles, we generally seek out an Asian or an African supermarket, tapioca, starch, all of that. And we see that there's a lot of new products coming in. Like I just found somebody who sells cricket flour, so I'm really keen on trying that now. Yeah, so there are definitely products coming in, and people like the paleo web shop in Holland, that lady, she's really sweet, and she does her best to find specific items for us, like water chestnut flour, very specific things that not everybody knows about. So yeah, we're good.
You have such a range there, and sometimes, you know, we're so US-centric because a lot of the information's coming out there, we forget that a lot of these products do exist elsewhere, and that's something I wanted to touch on as well. So, Joe, could you tell us, do you order any food online? Amazon doesn't ship food internationally, which is a bit of a shame for us outside of the US. So is there any way that you get around that, like Catharina said, with local suppliers, producers, and websites?
I know that both Grub and Feather and Bone you can make an internet order and they will deliver to the Greater Sydney region. So there's a source for good quality pasture-raised, hormone-free meat and protein. I quite like eyeballing butchers and farmers, so I'm the one that goes to the source. There are places like About Life where you can source a lot of these slightly alternative organic starches. A little bit like Catharina, when you're looking for things like plantains, you do need to search a little further afield, and Polynesian markets down in this neck of the woods tend to be the place to go. In terms of online, I use iHerb for supplements. I don't buy a lot online, really, in terms of food, because I like to buy things that are seasonal and local and where possible. And when you're on the elimination phase of the autoimmune protocol, I mean, baking goes out the window, really, because there's no eggs, and it's really about healing. So it's the exciting part when you're reintroducing things, I think, that, and if eggs go your way and you can start experimenting with some of these other flours, the idea of cooking with cricket flour just blows me out of the water. I think that sounds amazing.
Yeah, me too.
High protein.
Yeah.
So, Catharina, I'll be following your blog. I'm looking forward to seeing some cricket flour recipes.
Well, you know, actually, I contacted someone who sells insects, and I asked him, do you perchance have any cricket flour? And he said, no, but I can give you the dried crickets, and you can easily grind them into a flour. I said, well, I prefer to get the powder, thank you. I thought maybe it's because I'm a woman, but I'm not really keen on insects, you know. If I get them in a powdery shape, I'll be fine. I'll just bake with them. But I think so too, Joe. What I find, I mean, it's full of protein, probably very low carb. And if it holds together, I don't know what it's like, but then it will be great to make crackers and stuff on AIP. That would be great.
Totally agree. I'm looking forward. You can be the flag bearer.
Yeah.
And just following up from what Joe said, for other resources in Australia, I just want to second that iHerb is where I get all of my supplements from too. They do shipping at a really competitive rate. In fact, it's very cheap. They're shipped from the United States, and anyone who knows Australia knows that it's the other end of the world. And as such, shipping rates are usually pretty expensive, but not with iHerb. Also, there's a website for fermented foods and general convenience foods here called GPA Whole Foods. Sometimes I use that, so if you're in Australia and looking for an Amazon-like substitute, it's worth checking out that site. Actually,
can I just say one thing?
Of course.
For any Australian viewers, Kitsa's Kitchen. Kitsa is a very early adopter of fermented foods here in Australia. And she's been fermenting her own foods and running an online store, and she's about to open her very first store on the North Shore in Sydney, and that is the place to go for all your anaerobic jars for fermented veggies. And she's so knowledgeable, so it's a really great resource for people who are considering the autoimmune protocol in this neck of the woods.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Astrid?
Right, shipping, online order. I had issues about ordering my food online for the longest time, and then finally when I realized, how am I going to get my my grass-fed gelatin from Great Lakes? So I did order from iHerb before, and then I got dinged with custom charge and things like that. And then I looked a little bit further, and then finally I've got actually set up a cross-border, and Vancouver is very close to Washington, just across the border. So I've set up a mailbox just on the other side, and I get on my Amazon.com things sent there, and then I just drive down. It's all legal. I claim it and everything, and that way I can save the shipping, because a lot of times the shipping is free. And also, it's also a lot cheaper than the Amazon.ca for whatever reason. But locally, there are a few shops that, because of the AIP Vancouver Facebook page, the members have asked them to bring in certain things like the gelatin or the collagen. So that helps, because we just need to tell the shopkeepers what we need or what we're looking for, and some shops are willing to look into it and bring it in. And online shops, there are a couple of shops, online shops there's one called nationalnutrition.ca that I get some supplements from. That's pretty good. And yeah, but other than supplements, the gelatin collagen is really the biggest thing. I just prefer to buy things that I can go and pick it and go from there.
Following your blog, one of the things I was a little bit envious of, I must say, is the epic bars which you eat sometimes. Those things are so good. And so every time I see a blogger eating one of those, either in the US or in Canada, I'm always very envious.
I did actually drive down to Bellingham to buy those ones. So it becomes gold. I tell the kids, like, no, I know it says bacon on it, but that's Mummy's. So, but we try to. I know.
I do that.
I'm fighting with my kids about food. Do you? Okay, good. I don't feel it.
AIP baked goods. They're like, don't touch them. That's mine.
I do the same thing too in my house. I'm like, don't touch them. You can eat the other food.
Right.
You can eat anything you want. Just give me the plantain crackers.
Totally. Catharina, I know that you mentioned quite a few things before. Did you have anything you wanted to add before we go to the next question?
On produce, you mean?
Yeah, on produce, where you source it from.
Well, I think that Astrid made a really good point that it's really good practice to ask your shopkeepers and your online shops for produce that you want, because if they hear that there's a need, they will get it in. Like we saw a lot of recipes, or some recipes, like in the Paleo Approach cookbook, with hydrogenated palm oil, and we couldn't get it. So our Paleo web shop got it in for us, which is just perfect. And often all they need is to get one box in. So if they know they have a few customers, they'll get it in. So I think it's a good tip for people in whatever country they are I think they can do two things. They can ask themselves, they can write to whoever is selling the product and ask them, like, where are you selling? Are you selling it in my country? That's what I do. Like, if I see coconut yogurt, I'll write to the company, or sweet potato chips that they have in the US. I'll write to the company and I'll ask them, do you sell it in Europe? And if so, what shops? And it might give them the idea as well. And I think that people could also write to their blog community. So if you have AIP bloggers in your country or paleo bloggers, contact them and ask them, like, I want to get this product, where can I find it, or do you know who to talk to? And I think that really, if customers show that they want a certain product, that the shops will get it. Like fresh plantains, we've noticed that some people have been asking for fresh plantains in supermarkets, and they've gotten it in. So it's good to go out and ask to what you need.
That's a very good point. Yeah, and thank you for raising that. Always good to speak with the shopkeepers. I'm conscious of time. One thing that I wanted to get to is a viewer question. So trying a new thing with the Autoimmune Connection, where we bring in a viewer question and we answer that. And this week we put out the shout to viewers on anything following AIP internationally if they had any questions. One of the good questions, a really good question that we got that applies to a lot of people, I believe, it was from Bethany in the Middle East. And so I'll read out a question and I'll get the panel's thoughts on it. She says, one of the things I struggle with the most living in the Middle East is living surrounded by cultures for whom sharing food is sharing life. It's a real challenge to say no to many of these cultures, Arabs and Persians in particular, as refusing their food is like refusing their friendship. Unfortunately, many of these foods are nightshade heavy. Trying to explain to someone that the gift they want to give will make you sick is very hard to do. I've had to be really blunt and referred to things as allergies. She asks, is anyone else struggling with this? And Joe, if you could start us off with any thoughts that you have.
I think the most important thing to remember as you're going through this autoimmune protocol, particularly in the early stages, is that you're doing it for yourself. And if you don't have your health, then you don't really have anything. So it is hard because I still to this day have friends who just don't get what I'm doing. And that's okay because that's not about me, that's about them. And I just need to stick to what I believe and what's working for me. So I guess that doesn't help Bethany much. Other than to, I guess, prioritize yourself through the process and explain politely to people who are trying to feed you whatever non-compliant food it is that unfortunately you're just not able to do so. And I know that Catharina's got a great piece of advice around that in terms of how to manage it. And look, I just took my own food. I mean, I knew that what I was eating was so strict. And more often than not, people want to try it because it's good food. It's, you know, it's tasty, it's healthy, it's, I've got my dad coming over from New Zealand after Easter and he's already asking me about my veggie hash breakfast. So, people fall in love with it once they get it.
True.
Totally agree. Delicious food all around. And for some great recipes, check out all of these panelists' blogs. They're some very talented recipe creators. Astrid, you're next.
Well, I agree with Joe. Basically, I always bring food for me, and I do bring like a little plate, like the different sections that you can put different things in there, a little bit of maybe some fruit, basically a whole dish I bring there, and I'm happy eating it. But I think, for Bethany, I understand it's a cultural thing because these cultures that are very family oriented where food is food is love. It is really hard, and I come from that culture too. Finally, my family has kind of left me alone. They understand that I have to be on a pretty strict diet. So basically, I just bring extra. I cook my plate, and I bring some extra. And then when eventually you're gonna run out of food to offer. But when someone comes and offer you food, you just kind of say, hey, why don't you try this? And because that way you kind of keep that positive energy going instead of just saying, no, I can't, and end of the story. So as Joe said, we offer our really yummy food to other people, and you're still having that back and forth. My friends always ask, because like whenever I have a dinner party, it's like, oh, they call it the rainbow rice. Is she going to make the rainbow rice? So there's always something that people, once they try it, they're excited about it. And also just kind of open other people's minds but you have to be prepared to bring quite a bit of food to share depending on how large a party you're going to. That's the only catch, I guess.
I love that, and I love how you say you focus on the positive, not what you can't have, but giving other people what you can have and sharing that food. That's such an important message, and it really shapes the way that we as individuals think about this healing protocol too. So thank you for reminding us, Astrid. And Catharina, you want to be next?
Yes, so I think there's two situations. One where you can prepare for the meeting or the event or the meal, and one where it's sort of sudden. I think perhaps Bethany is in situations where she's invited and then offered food like out of the blue. And I think in those situations when you're surprised and you haven't prepared anything, my response is always very gently tell people that I'm on a medical diet and I can't eat this because my doctor tells me not to. And that sort of leaves no space for discussion, and it's not about I don't want to eat your food. You say it looks delicious, you know, and also I focus on what I can. If there is a salad, I'll say, oh, I'll have that. That looks beautiful, you know, but the rest, I'm really sorry, but I can't have it for my health. And then change the subject. And if you can prepare, I found that I survived a lot of parties by phoning ahead and talking to the chef or talking to the host and discussing with them what I can and can't have. Usually I'll ask them to tell me what the menu is, and then I'll say, okay, I'll have the chicken, but for me, just prepare one part without the sauce. Okay, I can have those vegetables, but, you know, just put the nuts on the side. And we'll just go through what they're making and find out how, with little tweaks, I can make it work for me. And it's always worked out fine. So I think what Joe said was a really good point. The first thing you need to do is make it very important for yourself. And then if you are really serious about it and you have no opening to change your diet, you're really like, this is what I do and I'm not stepping away from it, then people will take it seriously as well and you won't enter into discussion. So yeah, so putting yourself first is really the first thing to do, yeah.
I love that saying that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I wanted to add on to the what Joe and Catharina said about being serious about you know, healing your body with food is, when I tell people about what I can eat, I also show this excitement that I found this that has worked for me, and when they see that excitement, they're not as like, oh, you know, they're happy that I'm happy, instead of saying, like, kind of focusing on the positive side, right? But we do have to build a little bit of a harder, you know, exterior to kind of draw the line and say, well, it's nothing personal, but I can't eat this, but I can eat this, and look at all the food I eat. I have such great health now. I've changed my health over, and I think when they see that excitement and positivity, they will kind of say, okay, that's okay. So that works for me.
Definitely, and like both Catharina and Astrid, you've touched on there, as soon as people understand why you're doing it, how important it is for you, that's it. That's all they need. You know, I was severely unhealthy before, and now I've reclaimed my health. Yeah. People understand that. People know that how important health is, as Joanna said. So it's about how you can explain that in a way that resonates with both your audience and you as a person. And I think that's a show. So I want to thank all of our amazing viewers for watching. Be sure to share your thoughts and comments in the space below. Also, give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. In terms of viewer questions, if you have any questions following up from this show, again, in the comments below, or for future episodes, including ideas for future episodes, right on either one of the hosts' Facebook page. And be sure to check out our wonderful panelist blogs. We have Astrid at Heal Me in the Kitchen, Catharina at Paleo Feast, and Joanna at This Sydney Life. Thank you again for being on the show. And before we leave, are there any resources that you wanted to share with the community that we didn't get to mention earlier in the show?
Sorry.
Catharina, go ahead, Catharina.
Right. We, together with the moderators of the UK Facebook groups for AIP, actually created a European forum, and it's called AIP Information Europe. So I'm inviting everyone in Europe who's doing AIP to join us, and we can exchange information about anybody working with AIP in your country, practitioners, resources, products, books, whatever. So come and join us at AIP Information Europe on Facebook.
Awesome. Joe?
Yes, I wanted to mention the paleo approach. Sorry, let me start again. The paleo approach community in Australia. There's a Facebook group for the Australians on the autoimmune protocol. And of course, Rory from the Paleo PI, Kirsty from the Nutritionista, and myself host autoimmune protocol picnics, which we launched this year. And we generally give you a few weeks' notice. The next one will probably be end of April, I suspect. And we would love to see you there if you'd like to come and join us. It's an opportunity to meet up with other AIPers in the region.
And that will be in Sydney for all of those following in Australia or New Zealand if you want to come across with us.
I'd love to have some Kiwis there.
Oh, yeah. And Astrid, was there anything else?
No, I think we're pretty much covered up. Yeah, I think we're good.
You mentioned the Vancouver and the Canada Facebook groups for those interested, so I've noted them down too.
Right. Yeah, so AIP Vancouver and AIP Paleo Canada. Those are the Facebook groups.
Awesome. Again, awesome to have you on the show, and look forward to seeing all the viewers in the future, and we'll definitely have to have you all back on. So thank you again and goodbye.
Thanks, Rory.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.